Right now, across Canada, there are jobs that nobody will do. The postings are up. The "We're hiring" signs are in the windows. The employers are, in some cases, genuinely desperate. And still, the applications don't come. Shifts go unfilled. Positions stay open for months. Entire industries are quietly discovering that they cannot find anyone willing to do the work. And the strange part is that these aren't obscure jobs. They're the jobs that hold this country together. The people who care for the sick and the elderly. The people who serve your food and stock your shelves. The people who drive, clean, cook, build, and keep the lights on. Increasingly, Canadians are looking at those jobs and saying, quietly but firmly, no thanks. Not because they're lazy. That's the lie people reach for, and it's wrong. Canadians didn't suddenly stop wanting to work. Something changed about the jobs themselves and about what they now pay versus what life in this country now costs. If you work in Canada, this affects you. Because when the essential jobs stop getting filled, everything you rely on gets slower, worse, and more expensive. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why nobody wants these jobs anymore, and why it's a warning sign that goes far deeper than any one industry. Let's kill the easy explanation first, because you'll hear it everywhere. People just don't want to work anymore. It's the lazy answer, in every sense. It's comforting to whoever says it, because it puts the blame on the worker and lets everything else off the hook, and it doesn't survive 30 seconds of actual thought. Canadians are working. Many of them are working harder than ever. Multiple jobs, longer hours, side gigs stacked on top of full-time work just to stay afloat. That's not a country that stopped wanting to work. That's a country running as fast as it can and still falling behind. So if it's not laziness, what is it? The truth is simpler and far more damning. Canadians are doing exactly what any rational person does. They're looking at what a job demands and what it pays, and they're making a decision. And more often, the decision is that the job simply isn't worth it. The first reason is the most obvious, and the most important. The pay stopped making sense. For a long time, there was a basic deal in this country. If you took an honest job and worked full-time, you could afford a life. Not a lavish one, but a real one. Rent or a mortgage, food, a car, a little bit left over. That was the floor, and it held. That floor has fallen out. Wages in a huge range of essential jobs have not come close to keeping pace with what has happened to rent, to housing, to groceries, to everything. So you now have full-time jobs, real, demanding, necessary jobs, that no longer pay enough to afford a basic life in the city where the job exists. Think about what that means. You can work full-time, do everything right, and still not be able to cover rent and food. And when that becomes true of a job, the job stops being a path and becomes a trap. People look at it and they can see the math doesn't work, so they don't take it. Not because they won't work, because that specific work won't sustain them. The second reason is that the jobs themselves got harder, while the pay stood still. Understaffing feeds on itself. When one person quits and isn't replaced, their work doesn't vanish. It lands on whoever's left. So the remaining workers do the job of two people, for the pay of one, under more stress, with less time. Which makes them more likely to burn out and leave, which piles even more onto the people who remain. It's a spiral, and a lot of Canadian workplaces are deep inside it right now. So the job a person is being asked to take isn't the job it was a few years ago. It's more work, more pressure, more responsibility, more exhaustion, for the same paycheck, or one that's fallen behind. You're being asked to do more for less, in real terms, and to smile while you do it. And people have started to decline that offer. The third reason is harder to put on a spreadsheet, but it might be the most powerful of all. These jobs stopped offering respect, and they stopped offering a future. There was a time when essential work carried dignity. The person who did it was valued and, crucially, could see a path forward. Start here, work hard, move up, build something. That sense of a ladder mattered enormously. It made a hard job bearable because it was going somewhere. For a lot of essential jobs today, that ladder is gone. The work is treated as disposable. The people doing it are treated as interchangeable, and there's no visible path from where you start to anywhere better. You can look years down the road and see the same job, the same pay in real terms, the same exhaustion. When a hard job is also a dead end, why would anyone sign up for it? People don't just work for money, they work for a future. Take away the future, and the money, which already doesn't add up, definitely isn't enough. But here's the real reason nobody wants these jobs anymore, the one underneath all the others. The fundamental deal between work and life in Canada has broken. That deal used to be simple and reliable. You give your time and effort, and in return you get enough to live a decent, secure life. Both sides held up their end. The worker showed up, the job paid enough to matter. What's happened is that one side of that deal quietly collapsed. Workers are still showing up, still working hard, still doing the essential, difficult, unglamorous jobs. But the other side, the promise that this work will buy you a decent life, has been broken. The effort is still required. The reward has been withdrawn. And people can feel that, even when they can't put it into words. They feel that they're being asked to hold up their end of a bargain that the other side has abandoned. And eventually they stop, not out of laziness, out of self-respect. There's a limit to how long anyone will pour themselves into a deal that stopped paying them back. That's what the empty job postings really represent. They're not a labor shortage. They're a slow, quiet refusal. Millions of Canadians deciding that a broken deal isn't worth signing. Let me make it real. Picture someone who spent years in one of these essential jobs. Caring work, or food service, or retail. The kind of job the whole country runs on. They were good at it. They cared about it. For a while, it was enough. Then the rent climbed. And the groceries climbed. And their hours got harder as co-workers left and weren't replaced. And one day they did the arithmetic and realized that this job, this full-time, exhausting, essential job, no longer covered their own life. They were working themselves to the bone to care for others and couldn't afford to care for themselves. So they left. Maybe for a different field entirely. Maybe stacking gigs that, added together, pay a little better and demand a little less of their soul. Maybe out of the workforce for a stretch, just to breathe. And the employer put up another "We're hiring" sign and wondered aloud why nobody wants to work anymore. But that worker knew exactly why. They'd have stayed for a job that paid them enough to live and treated them like a human being. That job just wasn't on offer. Multiply that one person by hundreds of thousands across every essential sector in this country, and you have the whole story. And here's why this lands on you, even if you'll never work one of these jobs. When essential jobs go unfilled, the services you depend on degrade. The care in the care home gets thinner. The wait at the hospital gets longer. The line at the store gets slower. The bus doesn't come. The restaurant closes 2 days a week because it can't staff them. The whole machine of everyday life starts to grind and stall because the people who ran it walked away and nobody replaced them. And then it gets more expensive too, because the desperate response to a worker shortage is eventually to raise pay to lure people back. And those costs get passed straight to you, the customer. So you end up paying more for worse, slower service. The refusal in the job market becomes a bill on your kitchen table. Everyone pays for a broken deal in the end, not just the people who walked away from it. And this is where it stops being about any single job and becomes about the country. Because the same broken deal is showing up everywhere at once, in healthcare, in the trades, in transport, in retail, in every corner of the economy where the pay has quietly detached from the cost of living. The mechanics we talked about, the care workers, the servers, the drivers, they're all reading the same broken arithmetic and reaching the same conclusion. That's not a series of separate industry problems. That's one national problem wearing 100 different uniforms. And a country cannot run indefinitely on essential work that no longer pays enough to live. Something has to give. Either the pay rises to meet the cost of living, or the work stops getting done. There is no third option where we all just keep pretending the old deal still holds. So where does this go? Employers will keep trying the easy fixes, signing bonuses, recruitment drives, hopeful ads. But you cannot bonus your way out of a broken deal. The workers who left didn't leave because nobody asked nicely. They left because the numbers didn't work and the respect wasn't there. Until the pay in these jobs rises to match the actual cost of living in Canada, and until the work comes with dignity and a future again, the postings will stay up and the applications won't come. And it leaves the same uncomfortable question this country keeps circling. What happens to a nation when the people who do its essential work decide they can no longer afford to do it? We're about to find out. So I want to hear from you. Have you walked away from an essential job, and what pushed you to it? Are you an employer who can't fill positions, and what do you think is really going on? And do you believe the nobody wants to work line, or do you think something deeper broke? Tell me in the comments below. I read them, and this conversation matters. And if you want honest, clear-eyed breakdowns of the forces reshaping life and work in Canada, subscribe to Canada Insider. There's a lot more of this story to tell.